Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meridith Powell, brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
Hey, let's turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. I am super excited about my guest today. You're going to find him so incredibly interesting. I mean, I think when people set out to find their area of expertise, they go through an unbelievable journey. And Richard Newman has had an unbelievable journey. He did not set out to become the world's leading expert on communication. He was actually a painfully shy teenager who couldn't even hold a conversation. Then he spent 6 months in a Himalayan monastery. Can you imagine? With monks who didn't speak a word of English. And that forced silence became the foundation for a career he's trained over 150,000 people, including leaders at Microsoft, Virgin, and 3M. I want you to welcome to the show, Richard Newman, founder and CEO of BodyTalk and author of Lift Your Impact. Actually, you have a couple of best-selling books, correct?
I do, yeah. Thank you, Meredith. I appreciate the introduction. You made me sound fantastic.
Well, you are fantastic. So let's go back to the very beginning. I mean, there you are as a painfully shy teenager. What in the world possessed you to go to a Himalayan monastery and work with monks? I mean, where did that idea even come from?
Yeah, great question. So for anybody listening who is wondering, how do you make change happen? I really wanted to make change happen for me. So as a kid, when I was trying to join conversations with other people, a conversation to me was like watching a superhighway of 10 lanes of traffic going in both directions, of everybody rapid fire. There's sort of banter happening in conversations and all these ideas bouncing back and forth. And I was just looking for the on-ramp, thinking, how do I get engaged? Yeah. And occasionally people would look at me and say, well, you're very quiet. And I think, well, if you just gave me an opportunity, I'd sort of figure it out. And then eventually I'd get some words into the conversation and people would look at me as if to say, what are you talking about? Because what I was saying was only relevant 15 minutes earlier. Oh. And so I was feeling this real pain. And then eventually a friend of mine gave me a book called Body Language. And I said, what's this for? And she said, look, you need this. You need to understand communication because you're really not good at this. And I read it. And it was totally profound for me. It really unlocked an area that I had no idea about at all. And then as my friends were heading off to university, I thought, I really want to do something different. I wanted to give back to the world. I had a really nice upbringing, but I also wanted to understand communication. I was very passionate about the idea of teaching. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go somewhere very different. So I ended up living in this Tibetan monastery up in the foothills of the Himalayas with these monks who didn't speak a single word of English, which then really shifted things for me, thinking I now need to figure out how to communicate, not just by words, which I was struggling with before, but how do I do that non-verbally with people to get to a place where we truly understand each other? And it was such a profound experience that when I came back to the UK, I thought I need to build on this. I need to share what I've learned. I need to understand this more, and I need to teach something about this.
So this idea of, I love this idea of, the fact that, words and everything were such a struggle for you. And then you found the idea of body language, because I don't know about you, but when I work with professionals, so much of communication we think is words, and it is not words. Yeah. And I think in a world where people are really struggling with the amount of change coming at them, people are feeling burned out, overwhelmed. I feel like, words are the last thing they really need. They need to be understood. They need to be heard. So where does somebody start with, there you are in that monastery, you come back, you want to teach this. We're like, what did you learn and what did you teach?
Yeah, you're so right to say people obsess over words, where I've been in situations where I've been in boardrooms and people have got a massive, very important pitch the next day, and they're obsessing over a couple of words on slide 200 that already has 300 words on it that nobody's even going to read. And I've had to say to them, you need to stop, because this is going to be won or lost on something other than that particular word. You need to work on the behavior. And so what I discovered in the monastery when I was living there is that there is a way of connecting with people way beyond the use of words. The presence that we have when we walk in a room, when we sit with someone, when we listen to somebody, that you can understand something about their essence that you can't get elsewhere. And in more recent experiences, I've been on a couple of retreats with the brilliant Rich Roll, who's a huge podcaster. And we've had experiences there where they'll say to everybody, you're not allowed to speak. Nobody in the retreat is allowed to speak for the next 3 hours. And you sit through time with each other, you sit through lunch with each other. And for me, being not only an introvert, but also being autistic, I've found that there's an unlock that happens when we are not speaking, where I enjoyed those moments of lunch with people with no words so much more because I could finally be the person. The words were not getting in the way anymore. And I really felt who they are and how they sat in that space. And so I'm often talking to people about the fact you have to work on your presence, because that is being felt whether you like it or not. When the words are coming out, when you're using slides, if you're using it, the sense of who you are is felt in a way that people often can't describe it, but they deeply feel it. And it's then dictating the decisions they might make about you and what happens next.
I want to dive deeper into this because I feel like one of the most interesting things I found when I did the research on you was that your research. You've done incredible research in this space, and your research shows that nonverbal shifts, so I'm assuming that's body language, can move people like 42 to 44% more. What exactly is that? And how, I'm so curious as to how the heck you convince a CEO or a C-suite executive that is feeling the pressure of having to produce on a quarterly basis, this whole idea of presence and nonverbal communication. So that was a lot. Yeah. So answer that any way you want to.
Yeah, sure. So the research came about because after I'd worked with the monks, I came back to the UK, I studied acting, and then I kept on researching things around communication and started teaching clients around the world based on all the research that was there. But then I realized there was a gap. There was a part of the research that was missing, and I wanted to give it to my clients to prove that what we had found through experience, prove if it was valid or not valid. And so I went to work with one of the most cited psychology professors in the world, Professor Adrian Furnham, who works in London at UCL, University College of London. And we put together this study. It took us 18 months to design it because we really wanted to get it right. Because there's other studies out there that people may know about that have been disputed, that have been debunked, where typically speaking in a study like this, you might only have sort of 20 or 30 or 50 people, usually based at one university or in one town in California and so on. And it's not really proved globally. And so we went the other direction. We had more than 2,000 people involved in our study from all around the world, people aged from 18 to 65, an equal split of men and women. And what we were looking for is, are there some changes you can make in your body language where you say the same words, you are the same person, you are you're just putting across this message, but making a slight change in your behavior? Could that change how people rate you? And the ratings that came back were extraordinary, to the point where it was way beyond what we thought. I thought we might prove that nothing in the stuff that I thought was going to work actually worked. But we found that small changes you make could actually change who would vote for you in an election. This went up by 59% increase of people wanting to vote for you in an election based on a couple of changes, which we thought, we thought might make a 5% shift, 7% shift. And essentially what we found is that if you move away from the habits that most people have in day-to-day work, and you shift towards a couple of pieces, the ones you know them just seem like they're clearly going to be right, then suddenly you get this shift. So a couple of simple ones to share with people is, firstly, if you find yourself, whether you're sitting down or standing up, the way that you hold yourself through your posture physically transforms the level of presence that you have, not just vocally, but physically. And a lot of habits that we found were working against people are, if somebody stands up, it's an unfamiliar environment. Often they lean on one hip and then they lean on the other hip, and then they're moving back and they're shifting their weight back and forth, and they're never in a truly grounded position. That one got terrible results. Nobody wanted that. You wouldn't get any votes. You're not an influential leader, none of those things. Whereas if you're standing or sitting in a position where you are physically upright, allowing gravity to go straight down in your body, you are then allowing that sense of gravitas, where that term comes from. Gravity is now working effectively with you, not against you. And this is something that, great sport players, great athletes, sorry, in different sports would be seen doing all the time. They ground themselves physically with where they put their feet, how they're engaging with gravity, such that they are stronger physically. And you can see it when they move around the court. And so if you're enabling yourself to do that as a speaker, sitting or standing or doing something virtual, then people feel a sense of gravitas. And once you've got that sense working for you, then you can start to move towards what you say and the story that you use that is going to engage people and move them towards changes you want.
It's amazing. So when you're working with leaders in the companies that you've worked with, and I think about what they're, trying to strike this balance right now of trying to produce results in a world where you're constantly asking, your team to change, to do things different, to do less with, to do more with less. I mean, those types of things. What type of body language, what nonverbal, I'll say that, nonverbal communication skills do you really try to share? Like, what are the most powerful and most important for them, while at the same time with their words, I would imagine they're relentless about the fact that we have to produce this result.
Yes, 100%. So, there's a huge toolkit that goes into this, but what it essentially comes down to is two things: having congruency and focusing on how you want people to feel. And these are not things that typically leaders are even thinking about. They're thinking, okay, I need to get in that meeting room. I need to do this town hall. I need to do this sort of virtual webinar or speak at the conference. And I've got to get through these slides, and I've got to say the right words. The words that we've agreed are the corporate terminology of how this is going to work. And they forget the fact that people are looking at them in the room before they even get on the stage to get a sense of how is that leader feeling right now. And if that leader is feeling nervous and appearing nervous, potentially because they don't like getting up on stage and talking to people, the people in the room are thinking, there's something wrong with the company. There's something, whatever they're about to pitch, they are nervous about it. It means that AI is going to take over my job. It means my job's in threat. I'm going to disagree with this. I'm going to leave the company. They're thinking all sorts of things based on that person's presence in the room. Then when they get on stage, you see this all the time, where you have somebody on stage who doesn't understand how really to project a message. They know what they need to say. They've got the slides up there, but they don't know how to engage the audience fully. And so what's happening is their body language and their words are going in different directions. So they have this incongruency where they might be up there thinking, okay, I need to be serious because I'm a leader. And, I want people to take me seriously with authority. And they say something like, hi, everybody. It's great to be here today. I'm really excited about these new changes. And people think, wait, you don't seem excited. There's something with great gravity happening in your message. It sounds like you are about to tell us that a department is going to shut, and suddenly their worries are coming in, which they then associate with your words. And so I'll often talk to leaders and say, okay, how successful was it the last time you aim to change your strategy? And they say, oh, we had this brilliant idea, this amazing strategy. We knew where we were going to go, and then we announced it, and then there was challenges. People didn't understand it. Nobody did anything. And then a year later, we came up with a new strategy. And you can see this happening again and again with audiences having change fatigue because they think the last one didn't work. Why would this one work? And really, it's not that people have bad ideas or don't have good strategies. It's just getting people to listen to your story of change in such a way that they understand it, they believe in it, they care about it. They see that you as the leader truly believe in it, and you're mentoring them along the way, along that path, such that they feel cared for and trusting that journey, because no one's going to go in that direction unless they truly trust the person who's given them the message.
So do you need to do work as a leader on your own end? I mean, you said something really, because I think about that. I think about when I really transformed as a speaker, and I would imagine this was the same for you, is that because there you are, a painfully shy teenager, but you were so passionate about what you had discovered. It's like it's killing you. You have to share it. And that's how, I spoke for years where I think I was just sharing information. I thought it worked, but I wasn't passionate about it. So is that work that you, like, if you're going to give nonverbal cues, do you have to do your own mindset work first?
Absolutely. And it's a matter of building up your self-awareness as well. And this is often a challenge for leaders, where the higher you get through the organization, the less that people are going to tell you what you need to change. When you're
Yes.
when you're lower down, when you sort of first enter, hopefully you have a good manager who will point out what's not working. But the higher you get, the more that people might be inclined just to agree with you because they think it might help them get a promotion or stay in the
Yes.
company or stay in your good favor. And so it's critical that you go and find someone who doesn't work for you and doesn't feel like politically it's the right thing just to tell you what you believe, and allow them to share with you what are the habits that are currently holding you back. And so that's going to give you that perspective that you cannot get yourself. And you've got to be open and willing to hear those things, because I find there's too many leaders who, like, you've got to have a strong ego to get to the position of leadership. But sometimes they've built up armor around that ego such that they can't hear feedback. And they say, I've got this far by doing what I'm doing, so I'm just going to keep on doing it. And the classic phrase is, what got you here isn't going to get you there, particularly in the age of AI, where everybody is looking at everything thinking, is that real or is that fake? And I want to know that whatever I am hearing from somebody, it comes from a position of absolute truth.
Yes.
And so you've got to be willing to get to the point where you can put away habits you've been using in the past and embrace other habits. And a good way to think about this, particularly on the Ask for Change podcast, I've got to talk about this. Sometimes people say to me, Richard, don't mess with my body language. Don't mess with my style. You know, I am who I am. This is me. And I have to say to them, actually, no, who you think you are is actually a collection of habits of the things that you have done, maybe for the past few weeks, past few months, or past few years. You've collected a series of habits and you've defined it as, this is who I am. It's actually not who you are. It's a tiny, minuscule amount of what your true potential is. And so if you're going to build yourself into being more effective as an influential leader, you've got to be prepared to put down the habits that other people will let you know are not working for you, and build out a new set of habits that will feel very true to you, because it's part of who you are. And you need to then practice them in safe environments before you then go in to deliver a key message in a big town hall.
Yeah, you know what I love about that, what I love really about what you said there is the fact that the first thing you need to ask yourself is, did the last change initiative fail? And if it didn't, I mean, or was it bumpy? If it was, then the one person you need to look at and change is you, right? Yeah. I want to flip it around a little bit. So now for the leader, I've done my work. I've done my, my self-awareness. I know what I need to change. I've worked with you. I've got my, verbal cues. Are there things that I need to be looking for in my audience, for lack of a better way to put it, but my employees, to realize, to even understand if my message is landing or not?
Yes. So you can have a great message. You can have a brilliant strategy. You can deliver it superbly well. But the other part that you need to be looking at is that there is a story of change that people are going to go through. And too often leaders will position it saying, this is great for our company. And the person in the audience is left thinking, but is that good for me? Like, what is the impact directly on me next week, next month, next year? And so you need to be looking at a couple of factors, which is, firstly, if you are truly going to change as an organization, people are going to have to go through that uncomfortable journey of changing their habits. And people don't like doing that. We like having habits because it makes us super efficient. And so one of the things you have to look at is thinking about, who do they need to become such that this change is inevitable? Because if they stay who they currently are, doing things the way they currently do, they will actually still be loyal to an old story, to an old strategy. So you have to think about, who do they need to become, which needs you as leaders and as sort of first line managers to people to figure out, well, who are they right now? And based on them having these beliefs, these behaviors, is that going to truly get us to where we need to be? If it's not, then we need to be looking at how we can change that sense of identity for each of these people. But the other part you need to look at, and this is what much simpler to look at, is where are they energetic wise? Where are they on the change curve? So I'm sure you're very familiar, all your listeners will be familiar with the Kubler-Ross change curve, where the piece that sometimes people miss is that the energy for people goes up initially. When change is announced, our energy goes up. In that sort of shock and denial, what the heck is going on situation, our energy goes up, it is peaked. Then the energy goes down when we get to the place where we think, okay, I have kicked against this and the change is happening whether I like it or not. And suddenly I feel depleted, thinking, well, I didn't ask for this change. Now my energy is low. And then on the other side, the energy goes back up, where they are ready for the change, accepting it, and they're moving on. So as a leader, you need to be looking at, where do I see them being energetically. In that first phase, when they suddenly get super alert, and this is something that my wife finds as well, by the way. She's a GP, and she is, sometimes having to give difficult news to people where, it's going through that kind of change. She's got to look at what energetic level are you personally right now as we go through this new journey you were not expecting. So initially there's alertness. Now this is where leaders go wrong all the time. Suddenly people get super alert. There's change happening. What's going on? And what the leaders do wrongly is they go, but don't worry, we're going to look after you. And the person's like, what? Wait, what? I don't even understand really what's happening here. I need some time to process it. And you're saying you're going to look after me. And they say, come on, I know you can do it. And they're thinking, I haven't still understood this situation. So in that initial piece, you need the first of the three C's. You need total clarity. You need to keep on giving clarity on the message, which is where you're going to use the story of change to give people that clarity piece over and over again, a couple of times until they got to the point where they get, what does this mean for me next week, next month, next year? Then what you're potentially going to see, it doesn't happen in a linear fashion necessarily for everybody, but what you'll see for some people is then their energy drops. And they're in a place where they have processed it, but they don't necessarily like it. In that phase, again, leaders often go wrong, where they go, let me explain it again. You clearly didn't understand it. The person goes, I understand it. I'm just dealing with it. And sometimes leaders also go, you can do it. And it's too soon. What you need to do is to show, I understand you didn't ask for this. I care about you. I'm here for you. And you don't even need to say very much, but your presence will say everything. And then finally, when they come back out on the other side, and it could even happen at the first meeting, there'll be some people in the room who think, I've been waiting for this new strategy straight away. And you'll see them, they're like, come on, let me get up and go for it. Give me the budget, give me the resource, and I'm going to put this into action. And for those people, you need to give them courage. You need to give them that sense of, you get it, you understand it. Now I'm empowering you to do something about it. And then that independence and that sense of psychological safety to try it and do risky things, do new things. That's the space to do it. But you've got to watch, where is the person energetically in order to get that change curve and change story happening for you.
So is it clarity, compassion, and courage?
Clarity, care, and courage.
Courage. Okay. Great. I want to get those right. It is hard to believe, but we are basically at the end of this podcast, and I always like to end with two questions, and you can answer them either way. One is, how do people find out about you? How do they find out about your work? And the second is, for people out there struggling with change, whether they're a leader, whether they're an individual, what is your greatest advice, or one piece, the big takeaway they need to take away from this podcast to really help them start to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage?
Great. So if people want to find me, they can find me at richardnewmanspeaks.com, and Richard Newman Speaks on LinkedIn as well. And I'd love to support them if I can. In terms of, if people are struggling with a sense of change, just know that you're not stuck. You are not stuck where you are. You or the people around you are being loyal to an old story. And it is only when you replace that with a new story that is truly compelling to you, that you believe in, the people around you believe in, that suddenly change will happen, because we process the entire world through story. And if you're stuck in an old story, but you have new facts, the old story will win. So make sure that you think about, what is my new story going to be? And say it over and over, repeat it for yourself, and live out that new story, and you can make change happen.
Excellent. Richard, this has been a fantastic conversation, as I knew it would be. And I feel like we have just scratched the surface of what we need to know and learn about what is a really critical skill in a time when, organizations are struggling to get their messages across. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank the audience for joining us. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Ask for Change. Until then, do something that helps you turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. We'll see you next week.